Howdy, and welcome to episode 41 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen, and today is Thursday, November 2nd, 2017. So I hope you had a happy Halloween. Luke dressed up as Spider-Man this year, so that was fun, getting to take pictures of him posing, as if he were shooting the spider web. So we went to a Halloween kind of carnival that is kind of gauged for kids right around his age. So lots of little games and stuff. So he had a lot of fun. Got to fill up his bag full of candy, and his favorite are lollipops, the little bitty ones, the dum-dums. So he really enjoyed getting to fill a bag full of those. And so we had a good time. But we'll go ahead and get started with today's episode. So I moved the camera. I wasn't really happy with the lighting the way it was, and I'm not really happy with how messy my craft room is right now, but I thought that maybe the lighting is a little bit better from this angle, so we'll try it. Anyway, so today's shirt. Usually when I am recording an episode, I don't come up with the name of the episode until I'm done recording, usually when I'm editing. Sometimes I'll see kind of a theme that I feel kind of went throughout the episode, or there's a particular segment that I want to kind of emphasize, and that's where the name comes from. Anyway, so this episode I came up with a name a few days ago based upon something I want to talk about in the what I'm reading and watching section. So I went through my my closet to look for a t-shirt to see if I could find one that that would fit, and I realized I didn't really have one that fit. So basically I was looking for something that was related to history. And technically I do have the Cat Milton play on Hamilton shirt that I used in the last episode. Speaking of cats, you'll probably now see that was Wally, and Eva's around here too. You'll probably see them wandering around. Anyway, I do have two other Hamilton shirts. They have quotes from the musical, but they didn't quite fit with what I wanted to say. So I realized I don't really have history t-shirts. So I picked this one. It's from Doctor Who. It says, "We're all stories in the end. Make it a good one." And the whole scene where this quote happens is really fantastic and wonderful, and I could actually talk about it. But that's actually not why I picked this shirt. I picked it because of the focus on story. So we're all stories in the end. And I've been thinking a lot about history. And my other option for a shirt was a Harry Potter shirt, not anything specific, just a Harry Potter shirt, so I could talk about the history teacher in Harry Potter. So when you think about history, especially if you didn't really pursue very much history kind of in advanced studies, but especially in high school history, what was your history class like? So in Harry Potter, the history teacher is at Hogwarts is a ghost. He's just he died one day in the middle of teaching, and he just kept on going, and the class is really kind of seen as this really boring class that nobody really likes to go to, and it's just a bunch of dates and names and memorizing dates and names, and that seems to be the experience of history for a lot of people. That it's just memorizing a bunch of dates and names, and really that is, I think it's so sad that people often get that perception of history, because really what history is about the story. So that's why I brought in the "we're all stories in the end" type of thing. And even going back to Hamilton, one of the big themes is, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. So it's all about story. And I think that's the part of history, the story part of it, that I want to kind of focus on. And this will make a little more sense about why I'm talking about it when I talk about the what I'm reading and watching section. But I really wish that more, and I know some schools and some teachers are much better at this, but I really wish history were taught more as as stories, as getting into the kind of day-to-day personal details, more specifics, rather than here's the big event, here's the date it happened, here's kind of what led up to it a little bit, and go memorize these names and dates. Really just getting those personal, individualized stories. That's what I feel kind of brings history alive, and is the important part of history. I think about, like reading historical fiction or watching movies that are based upon history, even if it is not 100% accurate. I think that, so let's say the movie Titanic, for example. I really, really love that movie, and it's because it makes that tragedy. I mean, you hear about the story of the Titanic and how many people died. And even though the main characters in the Titanic movie are fictional characters, going through their story and seeing that personal experience, and also getting to see some of the other characters along the way, really makes that history, really makes that tragedy so much more emotional and heartfelt, and you really kind of understand it a lot better, and understand why it was such a huge tragedy, that you personalize it. And it's not just a bunch of numbers or a date, or anything like that. It really is a personal story, and I think that's the part I like about history, when you get those individual stories. So that's why I think, we're all stories in the end, make it a good one. That's kind of appropriate to thinking about history, and trying to pry some of those stories out, rather than just getting the major facts, rather than those individual stories. So I encourage you, if you've never really been interested in history because you thought it was just kind of boring dates and names and places, maybe give historical fiction a chance. Reading Outlander and now watching the series, I know so much more about the Scottish Rebellion than I did before. And the author has done a really good job, a lot of research to make sure that it's as historically accurate as possible. So if you want to learn more about history, but you really don't want to go read what you feel is a dry history book, try historical fiction. Try some of the movies. Realize that some of it is definitely fictionalized, but if you get an author who is very conscientious about trying to be accurate, then you can learn quite a bit of history and remember it a lot more. I think that's part of the success of Hamilton. That through that musical, people are starting to get more and more interested in really learning about, especially about Alexander Hamilton, but about the founding fathers and what was going on at the beginning of our nation. So anyway, long story short, so history really, when it's the details and the stories of individual people, that's so much more exciting and interesting than just memorizing dates and names and places. So for today, I don't have a specific shawl to talk about. I actually wanted to do a follow-up from the previous episode where I told you that I had several shawls that needed to be blocked. And so I wanted to report back and let you know that I successfully blocked all 3 of those shawls. So this was Rice Fields brioche shawl. And before I had blocked it, so let me try to hold it straight. Before I had blocked it, when I looked at it, I could kind of see that these lines were kind of going this way and these lines were kind of going that way. It seemed like there was a little bit of a shift going on. And the blocking seems to have somewhat corrected that shift, but basically it just kind of smoothed out the shawl, and it seems like the shape, it was not bunched up, but it wasn't quite as nicely half circularly shaped before. So the blocking definitely helped that. So that's that side, and since it's brioche, this is 2-sided. So that's a nice, big, generous shawl. Happy with that. The Wonder Woman shawl was the other one that I had blocked. And this one, blocking didn't change it all that much. Make sure, let's see, this side is right side. So here's the Wonder Woman shawl. Again, the blocking just seemed to smooth it out, make it so it's nice and kind of flat, no stitches bunched up at all. And so that one is done. And this is a Christmas gift, so I need to get that all packaged up and wrapped and ready for Christmas. And then this is the one that had the most transformation in the blocking process. So I did show you the Wicked shawl when it was unblocked, and so now it is blocked. And you know what? The lighting still is not showing. Now the lighting, before it was kind of like blowing out some areas. It was a little too bright, and now it's not really showing the colors very well. But anyway, but this is Wicked. And after blocking, the shawl I noticed is a lot deeper. So there's the point down there, if you notice. So it seems a lot deeper rather than wider, but it definitely got bigger. It looks, I mean, anytime you block lace, it's going to look better after blocking. But anyway, but it definitely looks a lot nicer now. And I was able to take this to my my knitting guild last week and show it off during our show and tell section, of course. And Elissa's watching, so I know she will get a laugh out of this. So this is yarn from Panorama Fiber Arts. And I forgot to look up the colorway name again. They asked me at the guild meeting and I'd forgotten at that point. But anyway, so it's from Panorama Fiber Arts. And so, you know, it's very nice, the pinks and purples, and then going to black, and then I've got some beads in it. Well, Elissa had knit a shawl using a similar colorway. So it has the pinks and purples, but without the black. And her shawl, I think it's the Heart of the Mountain shawl, has a gazillion beads. I mean, it is full of beads. And she had also come to the Knitting Guild, and she brought that shawl to show off during the show and tell time. And I told her that I needed to go first in the show and tell before her, because after she showed her shawl, there was, you know, mine was going to not look quite as nice in comparison, since the colors were so similar. And that shawl is just absolutely outstanding. And the beading, she did such a nice job with that. Anyway, so she got a little kick out of me asking to go first, because I knew her shawl was going to be kind of the ooh, ah of the night. Anyway, so I did successfully block all three of the shawls that I told you guys last time I had not blocked. It really does help to, I mean, especially rice fields have been sitting around for ages, months, without being blocked. It really does help to actually tell people, you know, this is my goal, this is what I want to do, and to kind of have that in the back of your head, like, I told people I was going to do this, so I really need to do it. So it felt really good to say that, and then to go ahead and do the blocking. So 3 shawls that are absolutely 100% finished now, because truly, until you block them, they're not really finished. But 3 new shawls off the blocking board and completely done. What I'm knitting, mostly it is the green shawl, Dame Nature shawl that I'm technically designing, but instead of doing a separate what I'm designing section, I'm just including it in what I'm knitting, because pretty much this is what I'm knitting these days. I am so close to the end. I'm getting there. I really hope that in 2 weeks when I record again that it will be done. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, so here is my current progress. It's all bunched up on the needles, so it's really, really difficult to show you what it looks like, but it is a semicircular half circle shawl, and with beads. And I think last time I recorded, I was still pretty early on in this last section, so I have gotten quite a bit done. especially the past week. There was a week where it was just, oh, I do not want to work on this shawl, and I really didn't get very much done the first week after the previous episode. But this past week, I've gotten kind of renewed energy into it, and it's getting close. So for this section, I have 6 more rows. 6 more rows in this section, and then I move on to the border chart, and the border has 14 rows. So I have 20 rows left, but it is so close, and Wally just jumped up on my lap. So it's getting so close, and I really am ready for this to be off the needles, for me to be able to move on. Of course, when I'm done with it, then it'll be time to look for test knitters, though I will wait until after the holidays for that. And then some other people will have this shawl, and Wally's going to be up there playing around. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Anyway, so hopefully the shawl will be off the needles soon. But it really has been my focus. It has been what I am working on. And it's a little dull because there's not a whole lot to say about it. So hopefully I will get some more exciting things to talk about once that is off the needles, and I can show it to you a little bit better. But the not this past week, but the week before, like I said, I was so tired of that project, and as much as I wanted to get it done, I just could not motivate myself to work on it. So I was a little bad, and I started a new project, and this is going to be a project that will take some time. So it's a big project. So right now it doesn't look very big. Okay, Wally's trying to climb into the knitting bag. No, not in the bag. Okay, so this is a cardigan. I don't knit very many. Okay, this isn't gonna work. Sorry, Wally. I don't knit very many garments, but I did feel like it's the fall. I'm kind of feeling well, today in Texas you wouldn't really know it, but technically it's fall, and I would really like to have a cardigan. So this is the back. It starts out, you start out knitting the back, and then you knit the one side and the other side, and then eventually you're knitting it all as one piece. And after you get past the arms, it is a cardigan, so you're not knitting in the round. It's still back and forth, but it's not pieces that are seamed. Anyway, so it does have cables. So there you can see the cables, and this is the Let Go name. That's the name of the pattern from Joji Locatelli. And I started it, got a bit into it, and then I forced myself to put it aside because I really need to finish that shawl. But anyway, so here's the very start of it. Like I said, this is the back. Start with the back. The yarn is Madeline Tosh. It is I think it's the Madeline Tosh Twist. Pretty sure that's what it is. It's a DK weight. Anyway, I actually got this yarn when Mad Tosh Crafts. So Madeline Tosh is the name of the yarn, the dyed yarn. And then for a while in Fort Worth, there was actually a yarn shop called Mad Tosh Crafts. And mostly the yarn shop carried Madeline Tosh yarn, but there were also other yarns there as well. And last year, was it last year or has it been 2 years? Last year, it was right after Christmas. The shop closed, and they had, a huge sale going out of business, and I went and got several sweater quantities of yarn. So this is one of the sweater quantities of yarn that I got at that sale. And it was 50% off. So sweater quantity of yarn, 50% off was a really, really good deal. So I'm excited to use that and to work on that after the green shawl. Once the green shawl is done, then I will jump into this. But that's been fun. And I should have pulled up a picture of the cardigan. I will post a link to the Ravelry page in the show notes so you can see what it looks like. It's basically kind of an open cardigan that's a little bit swingy. It the bottom kind of flares out just a bit, not a huge flare, but just a little bit of a flare, and then it's got the cables. So I really, really like it. and I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. And Wally wants to jump in my lap once again. The other project that I have been working on a little bit is back to that awful hand spun. This project. So here it is. But the good news is that I have that much yarn left. And sorry, it's all because there's just a little bit left. It's kind of getting tangled. But that much left. So not a whole lot. It looks like it's going to go back through. Looks like it ends in green. So one more kind of color sequence it looks like, and then it'll end in the green. Yep, that's what it looks like. So I'm getting really, really close. And I think I told you guys a few episodes back that my plan is to actually fold this over and have a bottom, either get wood or leather. I need to look up bottoms. I know you can buy basket making materials. So fold it over so that it's a double thickness that'll help it hold up. So it'll be kind of a shallow bowl. And then I was like, what am I going to do with it? And I realized that I think that my mother-in-law would really like this. And she would like the bowl. Hi, Wally. And she would like to have a little bowl kind of to store things in. So I think that is going to be her Christmas present. So that gives me kind of an end goal in mind for this project, which is nice to have. And then also kind of a thing to do with it whenever I am done. So that is my plan. I kind of got this bright idea of, hey, let's do a whole bunch of projects for Christmas gifts. I can make a hat for my father-in-law, and I can do this and that. And all of my ideas are kind of smaller projects. So maybe they can get done. I don't know. We have now less than 8 weeks before Christmas, so we'll kind of see what happens. And I guess I will be sharing that with you guys. I think for the most part, the people that I would be knitting for don't watch the podcast. So I think I'd be okay with being able to share Christmas knitting if I do decide to go that way. But I probably need to make that decision really soon so that I am not one of those people who is furiously knitting away on Christmas Eve. Anyway, so that is what I've been knitting. So not only have I guess I have been pretty prolific with knitting recently. I actually have a finished project, technically two, although one of them, the knitting on it has been finished for quite a while. Anyway, so notice maybe that I didn't have a pair of socks that I was knitting in the knitting section. That's because I finished a pair. So this is, the yarn is from Jinx Yarns in the House Cup colorway. So all the Harry Potter house colors is basically the idea behind that. So I have a pair. They are fraternal. I purposefully chose to start the second one in a different spot from the first one because I didn't want to have to worry about matching up the stripes. I actually usually don't like the stripes to match very perfectly because I kind of like the idea of having socks that match but don't perfectly match. So yeah, there goes Wally. So that's, I like them better that way. The difference when I'm using something from Mustache, because most of the time Mustache does the two identical skeins. So it's really easy to match them, and it's actually a little harder to not match them when you're using that yarn that is actually already divided into two identical skeins. Anyway, so pair of socks that I finished. That means that I need to go through my self-striping stash and see what I'm going to cast on next. I actually just finished these, not last night, but the night before last. So I need to figure out what is the next self-striping. I have a lot of Mustache, so maybe I should go through that and pick one. But I also have some self-striping from some other dyers, so I might also look at that. So next time I should have a new pair of socks on the needles to show you guys. The other thing that I've finished, and this is a gift. This is a gift. I don't know if the recipient watches the podcast or not. but I'm mailing this today, so even if the person does watch the podcast, it won't give away too much, I hope. Anyway, so this is a baby vest. So turn it that way. It has cables on it. So a little baby vest. And then on the back, so that way it fits over the baby's head, it has buttons, so you can open it up, fit it over the baby's head, and then button it closed, and then the buttons are on the back, so that way it's not a safety hazard as much as if the buttons were on the front. This pattern, I will link my project page in the show notes, which will have the pattern on there, but I'm not going to name the pattern on the podcast episode because I found problems with the pattern. There were some very obvious math errors and some other things that I felt were not fully explained, and I actually detailed all of them on my project page, so you can kind of take a look at that. So I did have some problems with the pattern, which I hate to say, but I do feel like that's something that's important if this is something that you decide that you may want to knit. And Wally, I'm sorry, he's probably super distracting. Maybe you're thinking he's super cute. Hopefully you're thinking he's super cute. He is just all over the place right now. He definitely wants my attention. Anyway, so yeah, there were a few problems with the pattern, but I got through it, finished it. This sat on the unfinished projects pile for a long time because of the stupid buttons. I hate putting on buttons. I don't know why. It really isn't that big of a deal. Once I sat down and actually did it, it was fine. But for some reason, I always drag my feet on buttons. The cardigan that I picked to knit, I picked a cardigan without buttons, so that way I don't have to worry about that. Anyway, I'm always dragging my feet on buttons. I don't know why. So this baby is almost 2 months old now. This is supposedly the 6-month size, so hopefully it should still fit. And I finished knitting it pretty much when the baby was born. So it's been sitting around for quite a while waiting for those buttons. So yeah, Wally is behind the camera now. So that was his tail. Oh dear. Anyway, so let me grab Wally. Like I said, he is definitely being a very curious cat today, wanting some attention. Anyway, so the buttons, it sat around for so long. Finally done. I am mailing it off today to the gift recipient. If the baby has outgrown it, maybe it can be put on a teddy bear or a doll or something. So hopefully they can still get some use out of it. But that is what I've actually finished. So I have a tiny bit of stashing to show you. This one came about a week and a half ago, so a little bit after recording the previous episode, so I'm not opening it on camera. This is the last shipment of the Elemental Fiberworks Fiber Club. So this is the one, if you remember, it is based on the postcards from NASA. So here is the postcard it's based on, and then this is the fiber. And the lighting in here really does not want to show you any light colors. It's blowing those out. But anyway, so it's red and green and white, which is what the postcard is, and it is a merino, superwash merino silk blend. So I always like it when there's a little bit of silk in the fiber. This is the last one, so it's sad that it's the last one, but that does mean, because originally it was supposed to be a year, and then she extended it another 3 months. So 15 months, 15 braids of fiber that I have. Have I spun a single one? Nope, because, yeah, my spinning wheel has been completely inactive. So I have not spun a single one, but since the bases there are different bases, but she did use some of the same ones. So I think what I'm going to do, and I think I mentioned this a while back, is I'm going to go back through my my huge box of the fiber from this fiber club, see which fiber blends kind of work together, either are exactly the same or ones that I think would actually function well together, and kind of take a look at the colors and possibly plan a spinning project that uses more than one braid rather than, having one braid, one spinning project. So So yeah, so we'll kind of see what happens if and really I just need to make time for spinning. If it's really that important to me, I will make time. So I just need to make it important and make the time for spinning. And I noticed the light, I don't know if you can see it, but the lights from the blinds are kind of coming in, little pinholes of light, and they're showing up on my head. Looks kind of weird. I don't know, I think I'm going to have to rethink some of the camera placements. Anyway, so a little bit of stashing. It was an enjoyable club. I'm sad that it's over, but it's probably good because I've got 15 braids of fiber that I have not used, and I definitely need to plan to use. So a couple of exciting things with what I'm dyeing. These are not available yet. I need to go to the website and do all the behind the scenes listing things. But I do have 2 Christmas colorways that will be available soon. So I've got the traditional Christmas red and green, so those stripes. And then I did a kind of more of a wintry color. So these are blues and white. So you've got the kind of darker blue and the, I don't know, I just think of this as kind of a frozen icy blue and then white. So when I did the survey of, which colors would you like to see as Christmas colors, I got a lot of really great suggestions. A lot of them were silver and gold, which are really hard to dye. And then there were some, I really liked the gingerbread cookie idea, and I did actually have a plan for, I think it was a 4-color stripe sequence that would have red and green and then brown for the gingerbread cookie and white, because I went and looked at pictures of gingerbread cookies and so many just had the white icing on there. But since I had already done the red and green, I decided, at least for this year, I wanted to do something without red and green, and so that gingerbread cookie idea will probably show up next year. So I went with the kind of more wintry one, which a lot of people mentioned blues as a color that they really wanted to see. And then several people mentioned blue and white for Hanukkah. So I know that with this other blue in here, it's not exactly the blue and white of Hanukkah, but it's at least somewhat close to that. So hopefully that might work for people, depending on how specific they want to be with the blue and white. So could be, frozen wintry cold, could be Hanukkah, but I think that's kind of a fun colorway as well. So I do have skeins dyed. I just need to sit down at the computer, do all the behind the scenes stuff of adding it in, and then announce it. So my next newsletter goes out next week on Tuesday. So that is November, what is next Tuesday? November 7th? I think that's right. So that probably will be when these colors are released. So if you want to get notified of that, make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter. That's the best way to find out about that. But really, the reason I'm delaying the Christmas colorways is because I have another thing that has been released, and I don't want to kind of pile on all the things at once. So that's why I'm holding the Christmas colors back just a few days. The next yarn club is open. So if you are watching this episode when it airs or shortly thereafter, the yarn club is open and available for signups. So I will put a link to the show notes, but you can also go to roundtableyarns.club. You can go to .com and there will be a link to the club, but if you go to roundtableyarns.club, that is the yarn club website. I just thought it was really, really cool that you could get a website URL that ended in .club. Anyway, so that is the home for the Round Table Yarns Yarn Club. And this yarn club is based on the story of the abduction of Guinevere. So it's an interesting little story. And there are 2 different versions of the story, the 2 main versions of the story, and some of them have quite a few differences in them. And it was kind of hard for me to decide which version of the story I wanted to go with, and I finally picked the version from Sir Thomas Malory. So that's the one that I go through, but because there are some differences, So whenever I do a yarn club, I share the story as part of the yarn club. So with each shipment, you get a part of the story so that as the shipments progress, the story progresses and you find out what happens. So I just finished writing up, and I do it on little postcards. So I just finished writing up the little postcards, and I did a few details about the comparison to the other version, which is by a French writer named Crétin de Troyes. Because there's especially one point in particular that's very different. So I mentioned that in the story that I will be sending out to Yarn Club members. So if you're interested in finding out what are the differences in the story, you'll have to join the club so you can find out. But anyway, so 4 shipments, which means 4 months, 4 shipments, 4 different yarn colors that are based upon the story. And this time, the colors are a surprise. The colors are always a surprise. But this time, you get to choose your own base. I just wanted to kind of try out this option. In the past, I've chosen the bases, and they've mostly been a surprise for which bases you'll receive. But this time, I wanted to just see what happens. Do you guys like it if you get to choose your own bases? So I have several different options. You can pick an option that will give you the exact same base across all the shipments. So if you know you love Camelot, which a lot of people do, I love Camelot. That's the fingering weight merino cashmere nylon. Then you can choose to get all 4 of your shipments Camelot. I've got Camelot, Tristan, which is a sport weight 100% superwash merino. Really, really fabulous yarn, especially for like making garments. It's a really good yarn. The Avalon, which is a DK weight merino silk 50-50 blend, which is just fabulously luxurious, and Lancelot, the worsted weight. So I picked one yarn from each main kind of category of yarn weight. So you can get all 4 shipments of that. Or you can choose the fingering weight blend, which means you get all fingering weight yarn, and I list the 4 on the website. I won't give you the details of these, but Camelot, Grail, Legend, and Merlin, and the non self-striping, but the Merlin base. Anyway, so that's a fingering weight blend if you know you like fingering weight yarn, but you want different bases. Or you can get the non-fingering weight blend, which gets you a sport 2DK and a worsted. So the Tristan, Avalon, Cornwall, which is a BFL, Blue-Faced Leicester, and Lancelot. Or those are the options that I put on there. If there's some other base that you would like say you really love Cornwall and you would like all of your shipments to be Cornwall, just let me know and I will set up an individual invoice for you, basically to pay for the club. You can either pay all up front, or it'll be divided into 4 installment payments. So you can choose to pay all of it up front, not have to worry about payments anymore, or you can choose monthly payments. And all those details are on the website. Again, I'll link it in the show notes, or you can go to roundtableyarns.club. But anyway, so if there is a combination of bases or a base that you'd like all shipments of that is not listed on there, just send me an email. I'm happy to do a custom yarn club for you. I had to actually make, separate kind of payment pages, especially because I do international shipping, so shipping rates are different based upon where it's being shipped. So I had to do all these individual pages for each option, and then one for the upfront payments and one for the installment payments. So that 6 different options upfront and installment. So it was 12 different behind the scenes pages that I had to do. So I decided not to make an option for every base. But again, if there is a base that you want that is not listed on there, just send me an email. I will do that for you. So as far as the colors themselves, I picked colors that do work together. So if you wanted to do, all shipments Camelot, excuse me, then you will have four colors that will work together. There are 2 colors that are not perfect together, but they do work, especially when you add in the other 2 colors. All the colors are kind of similar in value as far as the lightness and darkness, so they would not be really good to do things like Fair Isle together because there's just not going to be enough contrast in the colors. But there are colors, I love all of them. I will just say all of them are in my wheelhouse. With the Tristan and Isolde Club, I did kind of stretch outside my usual comfort zone and pick a few colors that are a little different than what I would normally choose, which I think went well, but definitely some colors that were a little bit different. But this one, all the colors are in my wheelhouse. So if you love the same colors as me, then you should love the colors for the club. Anyway, so the first shipment will be December 5th, so pretty quickly. The club signups run through November 15th or until the club is full. And by full, basically I have a number of skeins of yarn in my head that I feel comfortable dyeing each month. And some of that depends on what the bases are. Like I can dye a lot more Lancelot, the worsted weight base, than I could Isolde, the lace weight base, because I reskein everything, and it's so much faster to reskein 220 yards of worsted weight yarn versus 875 yards of lace weight yarn. So if a bunch of people choose Lancelot, I can have a ton of openings. If a bunch of people choose Isolde, which technically isn't an option, you would have to special request that. But if a bunch of people chose Isolde, then that would be fewer skeins that I could do because that takes longer. So really it's there is a specific number, but that number depends on the makeup of what the bases are. And my kind of basic number that I have in my head just hit the halfway point today, this morning. So signups just started, and we're already to about the halfway point on the club being full. So there's still spots, but it is very excited to see people signing up for it. So thank you very much if you've already signed up for it. If you haven't, make sure you go right now, check out the website. You can get all the information and the price list and everything. And you have until November 15th or until the club is full. So if you know for sure that you want to be part of the club, signing up earlier is better. So that way you can make sure that you don't miss out. If I am getting close to that max number of skeins, I will post a note on the website. So you'll see that saying, I'm getting really close. So that way there's a little bit of a warning. Anyway, so I really, really hope that you will go sign up for the Yarn Club, and I'm excited to share this new story and this new set of colors with you. So I just wanted to give you a quick reminder about the knit along for the fourth quarter. The theme is any shawl based on a literary character or novel. So make sure that you are showing off your progress in the chat thread. Love to see the works in progress pictures. And then once you are finished, check out the FO thread and post your finished objects. We do have two finished objects so far, so that's really exciting. I will share some of those with you guys as a few more projects get finished. I have not yet started my own shawl. I've told you guys that I'm going to do his golden lair. I've got some Lancelot yarn dyed that I'm planning on using for that. And I haven't started because I want to finish that green shawl, but his golden lair is a worsted weight shawl, so hopefully I can finish it pretty quickly once I do get started on it. Anyway, so I hope you are working on your shawl for the knit along, and come over to the Ravelry thread and show us what you've been working on. I will post a link in the show notes, or you can just go to Ravelry, find the t-shirts and shawls group, make sure you join be a member of the group, and show us your progress. So there are several things I could be talking about for what I'm reading and watching. Last night, my husband and I finished up season 2 of Stranger Things, so I could talk about that. But I really, I don't have much to say about it besides I enjoyed it. It was fun. I think I probably like season 1 a little better, but I do really like seeing kind of how the characters have grown in this second season. So that was good to see. But really what I wanted to talk about is podcasts. So really this is what I'm reading, watching / listening to. I should probably kind of change the little title card there. Anyway, So I listen to a lot of podcasts, especially as I'm reskeinin yarn and dyeing yarn. It's definitely something that keeps me occupied. I also listen to audiobooks a lot, but definitely podcasts. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned a while back that I had found this podcast called Lore, so Lore, and it was a lot of different stories, some of them paranormal, unusual types of things. And I really, really enjoyed that podcast, and I listened to all the episodes, started from the very first episode and just listened straight through to the newest one. And it only comes, and then I went through them pretty quickly. And it only comes out every other week, so I love the podcast, but I wish there were more of it. There is also a Amazon just released a show. I think it's 6 episodes. That is the Lore show, and so they've actually, for this first season, they took some of the most popular episodes and kind of developed those for episodes of the show. Anyway, so I also watched that. But they're not producing them fast enough for me to consume at the rate that I would want. So I went looking for podcasts to see if I could find some things that might be similar. And I think that I was focused a little much on the paranormal aspect of it, and especially since I was doing this in October, so a lot of things were showing up for Halloween. And when I searched podcasts, I searched ghost. And so I found some pretty good podcasts. One is called Spooked. And then the other, I'm actually looking them up so I can make sure I can get the right name. The other one is called Anything Ghost. And both of those are kind of like call-in shows or write-in shows where people share their own stories of paranormal experiences. And sometimes the stories are really interesting, and sometimes they're just, probably someone just wanted to kind of share, have their 15 seconds of fame or whatever, and share a story on a podcast. And so they were okay, but I realized that they were not meeting that desire I had for finding not a substitute for Lore, but definitely a in between while I'm waiting for new episodes of Lore, what else I could watch. And I'm searching for ghost and for paranormal, and I'm just not finding what I'm looking for. And that's when it kind of hit me. What I love about these stories, what I love about Lore in particular, is not just the experience of we lived in this house and we would hear strange noises, and sometimes I saw a misty shape. That's really not the story that I enjoy. The part that I enjoy is actually the history. So here's where the tie-in to history and the title of this episode come into play. So really what I enjoy is the history of the thing. So if it's talking about a particular place that people have had experiences with, what was the history of that place? How did it start? Who has actually lived there? So those more personal stories. And that is what I enjoy. And I started thinking about some of the paranormal shows. I don't watch them anymore, but I used to watch now Ghost Adventures, which got way over the top as it progressed, and Ghost Hunters. And really, it wasn't so much the actual investigation part that I enjoyed watching. It was always the very beginning of the episode where they would explain the history of the place that they were investigating. And in fact, I probably could have just watched the beginnings of each episode and skipped the investigation part. For the most part, because really it was the beginnings of the episode that I enjoyed. So again, it's the history, it's the story, it's what's going on behind the place. So I realized that these 2 podcasts I had found, the call-in shows where people are just sharing, like I said, I went to this house and I saw a misty shape. That just wasn't giving me that same level of story that I wanted. So I realized that what I was searching for with ghosts and paranormal was not quite the thing to search for, but really what I should be looking for is haunted and focusing on places. So there's actually a podcast called Haunted Places, and it's a relatively new podcast. Um, so it was really easy to catch up. I think they've only got 3 episodes now. So there's that one, and that one I'm enjoying because it's actually looking at a specific place and looking at the stories that happened at that place. So it's much more kind of in depth and also detailed. So I'm really liking that one. And then there's another one called Why Is This Place So Haunted? So it's again the idea of the place itself and some of the stories about what happened at that place. So that is what I'm enjoying, and kind of realizing that now I know what to search for and what to find. And then I also found this one. So those are 2 kind of newer podcasts, so they don't have very many episodes. But I found another one that's been going on for a while, and it's called History Goes Bump. And that one has, let's see, episode 229 is the most recent episode. So there are a lot of episodes to catch up on. And some of them, I've only listened to a few episodes so far. Some of them are better than others. There was one that I listened to that I actually kind of stopped listening to halfway because it seemed like they were just, I don't know, going off on a tangent that I really didn't care all that much about. But anyway, but when it's talking about specific places and specific parts of history, I think that is a one that they probably have some good episodes, and I've got over 200 episodes to explore, so that should give me some good things to listen to while I'm waiting for new episodes of the other shows to show up. But that's what I realized I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying the history of it, the stories behind why, the name of that podcast, why is this place so haunted? What happened in that place? So that's really what I'm enjoying. And then as far as what I'm reading, I'm actually currently reading it's not a biography of George Washington. It's a really fascinating book. It's called Inventing George Washington. And so it's kind of a history of the history of George Washington, looking at what different biographers have said, kind of their biases that shaped the type of person that they would show Washington to be. So was he the very religious, very buttoned up type of person, or is he kind of the wild and carefree, having lots of women that that he left in his wake? What kind of person? And so the biography would be shaped based upon, that type of Washington that the author wanted. And so a lot of the stories and the instances and examples were complete fabrications, were completely made up stories, completely untrue. And you think about that when George Washington comes to mind, what's one of the first stories that you probably think of? Is it the cherry tree story? Probably. And that story was a fabrication. It was, a story that an author invented to have a particular, type of Washington that he wanted the world to see. So it's a really interesting book, kind of looking at, okay, the historical sources, this is what we have. And then in the, right after Washington died, this is kind of the progression of how he was portrayed. And then into the Victorian era, this is the Washington that was portrayed. And then, kind of going on. So it's really interesting. The story was written before Hamilton, but it would be interesting to see, or the book was written before Hamilton, but it would be interesting to see what the author has to say about the portrayal of Washington in the musical. But I'm finding that really fascinating. So it's less about the actual history of Washington and more about the history of the creation of the biographies and the history of Washington. So really, really interesting, fascinating book. So I'm kind of getting all these angles of history in my reading and watching that I'm going on now. And of course, I mentioned historical fiction at the beginning. I'm watching Outlander, so it's good to see that. And slight spoiler if you haven't read the books. So they're currently in Scotland. They're not going to stay in Scotland. They're going to go to I'll be a little vague, they're going to go to a different location and become involved in the history of a very different place, which again, kind of learn a little bit more of what happened during that time period. Than and some of the more specific details, especially of the day-to-day life. So that is really interesting. So I'm kind of feeling this a little bit inundated with history in a good way, and that seems to be kind of what I'm focused on. And then kind of going back to the inventing George Washington thing, when I was in my master's program, so I did my master's at A&M and then went up to Purdue for my PhD. But in my master's program, I took a class on women's biography. And what we did is we actually had two women. The first was Sylvia Plath, and the second one was a French writer named Colette. And we read several biographies about that woman. And we compared them, there are certain facts, like in Sylvia Plath's life, there are certain facts, but how the biographer chose to use those facts and which things to focus on really made for a very different representation of Sylvia Plath. So it was a really fascinating class, just to kind of see that you can never really take a biography at face value. There is always some type of bias, the type of person that the author wants to portray the subject to be. So anyway, so just really fascinating, something that maybe if you're interested in that, pick out somebody that has multiple biographies and read them back to back and kind of compare and see what those differences are. It's really, really fascinating. And so that's what I'm enjoying right now. The history, the story, the comparison of how history is created. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I don't know if I like this camera setup and layout. I don't know if you can tell, my face seems to be the thing that is now kind of blown out with the lighting. So I'll have to kind of play around with it for the next episode and see if I can get something a little bit better. It's always a little bit of a work in progress, trying to find what's going to show off the colors of the yarn and the knitting, especially the best. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. If you are a new viewer, I really appreciate that you checked out the podcast episode. I hope you will go through and watch some other episodes and hit subscribe. If you have been watching for a long time, thanks for coming back and spending this hour with me. And if you are watching this before November 15th, make sure you go to roundstableyarns.club and sign up for the Yarn Club. I'm really excited about this story, and I hope that you will join in. There is a knit along that goes along with it, and other stuff. So lots and lots of fun. roundtableyarns.club. You have until November 15th or until the club fills up. So go over there right away if you haven't already, and I hope that you will join us. And until next time, happy knitting!